Hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy. So UPSC Mains 2024 Gender Studies Paper 4 Analysis. So from today's session we will be discussing some case studies which are given in 2024 ethics paper, right? So case studies are very important part of your syllabus, and in fact every year you get around 6 case studies, and each case study will fetch you 20 marks. So if you understand how to address those case studies, how to approach those case studies, it would be very easier to score good marks. And in fact a lot of toppers have been scoring, not just toppers, even a few people who appeared mains examination, they also score very good marks in ethics paper. It is because of the case studies. And if you know how to approach those case studies, if you know how to write those case studies, so there is a higher probability that you could get a very good marks in the ethics paper, particularly in this section of case studies. So one by one we'll try to discuss and analyze so all these case studies, what should be the approach of these case studies, and how we can address them within a given time. Remember that these case studies are very lengthy. This year case studies are particularly too lengthy, so therefore first you have to see all these case studies, you need to read those case studies, you need to comprehend the things, and then you need to address the questions which are given just below these case studies, right? So since these are very lengthy, you need to be very careful when it comes to addressing these case studies. And also the directive that UPSC has given is that you need to address the case studies in just 250 word, but UPSC generally gives 4 papers for this case study, 4 pages for the case study, but you need to write the answer in 250 words. And in fact, since the lengthy nature of this paper, you cannot address all the questions, you cannot write all the questions within given time. So therefore you need to have a proper plan to address all the questions which are given in this paper. And remember that generally what students do, they start the paper either with the case studies or with the the questions itself. So since each case study carries 20 marks, most of the students start this paper with the case studies itself. And this year the case studies are also very lengthy, and therefore you need to be very quick when it comes to addressing these questions. So let's start these case studies and we'll understand how we can address this particular questions. So the first case study is about the environmental ethics or environmental sustainability, or we can say that the conflict between the environmental sustainability and the profit making, and the economic growth perspective, or balancing economic growth, economic development with the environmental sustainability. So those perspectives, and even technological innovation versus the economic growth and economic development. So one thing that we need to understand is that environmental sustainability without a doubt is a very important aspect, right? Because at present point of time, due to anthropogenic activities or increasing human activities at the cost of environment, so environmental degradation, biodiversity loss, and climate change, global warming, and deforestation, so all these factors have been degrading the existing environment, and that has also resulted in a lot of damages. Social damage, economic damage, and environmental damages are primarily caused by the anthropogenic factors rather than the natural factors, and we are also disturbing the carrying capacity of the environmental resources. Now in this context, the essence is that we need to balance the environmental sustainability with the economic growth and developmental aspirations, particularly a country like India, where there is a higher level of poverty and a higher level of unemployment, and because of all these reasons we need to grow at a faster pace, right? So we need to grow at a much faster pace, and in this context it is always advisable to balance the environmental sustainability with the economic growth and development. So the first case study is that there is a technological company, and the company is named ABC, and in fact this technological company ABC was incorporated, or it was established in the second largest worldwide, right? So this is the second largest company worldwide which is dealing with artificial intelligence or some sort of a technologies, but this company is situated in a third world, right? For example, first world, second world, third world. First world is developed western countries, and the second world was, the present day Central Asia and Eastern Europe. So that is the second world, and global south is also known as the third world countries, which are also the colonized countries. And you are the chief executive officer and majority shareholder of this company ABC, right? So you need to remember all these points, because you need to frame a proper answer based on all these different perspectives, all these details. The fast technological improvements have raised a lot of worries among the environmental activists, regulatory authorities, and also general public over the sustainability of this scenario, because the company has been consuming a lot of resources, and that is a cause of concern. And your company has been growing at a tremendous pace, but at the same time your company also require the resources to grow at that particular pace. So there's a conflict between environmental sustainability and economic growth and economic development. So you can see a clear conflict from this first paragraph itself. So you confront a substantial issues about the business's environmental footprint, right? So what does environmental footprint means? The business, your business or your company has been consuming a lot of resources, and the company has also resulted in degradation of the environment, or the company's environmental footprint has been increasing, and it is a cause of concern. In 2023, your organization had a significant increase of 48% of greenhouse gases compared to the levels which were recorded in the year 2019. So you need to remember one thing, that greenhouse gases concern worldwide, because greenhouse gases are behind global warming, and greenhouse gases are further resulting in climate change and increasing intensity and frequency of several disasters. So your company is producing a lot of greenhouse gases. When you compare the emissions, so in 2023 to 2019 levels, so your company has produced around 48% increased emissions. The significant rise in energy consumption is primarily or mainly due to the surging energy requirement of your data centers, particularly fueled by exponential expansion of artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence, adoption of artificial intelligence is one factor behind the increasing demand for the energy, because AI powered services need much more computational resources and also electrical energy compared to the conventional online activities, notwithstanding their notable gains. So the technology's proliferation has led to a growing concern over the environmental repercussions, resulting in an increase in warnings. So artificial intelligence models, especially those used in extensive machine learning, data processing, so they exhibit much greater energy consumption than conventional computers, task with an exponential increase. So one thing that you need to understand, that it is one of the largest company in the world, but recently artificial intelligence potential has been increasing. So realizing the potential of artificial intelligence, this company ABC has adopted the artificial intelligence, but this artificial intelligence requires a lot of energy compared to the conventional methods or conventional computers, and because of that reason your company's energy consumption has increased a lot, and that has also resulted in exponential increase of greenhouse gases as well. So in this context, although there is already a commitment and goal to achieve net zero emissions by 2030 from your company itself, because as a country, there are several countries. It is not mentioned that this company is located in India, rather it is said that this company is located in a third world country. Third world countries are countries in the global south. So therefore this company has the goal or the objective to achieve net zero by the year 2030. The challenge of lowering emissions seems overwhelming as the integration of artificial intelligence continues to increase, and because of increased demand for artificial intelligence based products, because artificial intelligence has resulted in a better efficiency, a better performance of your company, and you always wanted to make your company more and more profitable, since it is the second largest company in the world in this product base. So therefore you have been using artificial intelligence at a much higher pace, and there is an exponential pace of increase in the adoption of artificial intelligence. And to achieve this goal of becoming net zero by the year 2030, you need to make substantial investments in the areas of renewable energy, and use would be necessary, and the difficulty is further exacerbated by the competitive environment of the technology sector, where rapid innovation is essential for preserving market standing and shareholders' worth. To achieve a balance between innovation, profitability, sustainability, a strategic move from your company's part is necessary that is in line with both business objectives as well as ethical obligations as well. Right? So ultimately you need to achieve energy efficiency, you need to invest in renewable energy technologies. By this you can reduce the emission intensity of your company, and you can also increase adoption of artificial intelligence that ensures efficiency, better profitability and sustainability of the operations in your company. And you can also go ahead with the more and more innovation, and since it is located in the third world country, so better employment opportunities it could provide, and applications of artificial intelligence would have a lot of applications, a lot of applications in the areas of social development, economic development, environmental sustainability. So keeping this all these things in mind, there are some questions you need to address after carefully going through this case study. The first question is, what is your immediate response to the challenges posed in this above case? So you need to have an immediate response to the challenges which posed in the above case. So second question is, discuss the ethical issues involved in the above case. What are the ethical issues involved? And third, your company has been identified to be penalized by technological giants. So what logical and ethical arguments will you put forth, convince about its necessity? And fourth, being a conscious being, what measures would you adopt to maintain balance between artificial intelligence innovation that is very important for companies' profitability and sustainability and environmental footprint? So these are 4 questions and you need to address all these 4 questions. So what should be your immediate response to the challenges posed in the above case? So imagine that you are an ethical being, so you need to accept the environmental footprint of your company, right? So it is a concern for the regulators, it is a concern for the environmental activists, and they are pointing out the finger towards your company. So therefore you need to immediately accept there is an increasing environmental footprint from your company. And secondly, you need to assure the regulators, the government, the environmental activists and the civil society organizations that since this company has been responsible for degrading the environment, so this company in both short term and long term will invest in renewable energy technologies, will invest in energy efficiency as well. So that's how this company could reduce its environmental footprint. That's how this company could further go ahead with the innovation through adopting artificial intelligence. So that's what your immediate response should be. But so your immediate response, you need to accept the fact that this company is responsible for emitting a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and you should also convince the regulators and environmental activists that you have a net zero emission goal by the year 2030, and therefore the company is well prepared, and the company is committed enough to achieve the goal of net zero or becoming net zero by the year 2030. So in order to do so, the company will be investing in the renewable energy technologies as well as the energy efficiency. So that's how the company could reduce its emission intensities or its emissions. And secondly, you need to discuss the ethical issues involved in the above case. So there are a lot of ethical issues involved in the above case. Now, what are those ethical issues involved in the above case? For example, so there should be a proper balance between environmental sustainability as well as economic growth and economic development. So that is one ethical issue which is involved here. And remaining competitive is also one of the ethical issue, and making company profitable, so to protect the shareholders interests is also a cause of concern. And achieving net zero emissions, but the increased emissions of this company is also a cause of concern, because around 48% increase in the emissions compared to 2019 levels, but still it is 2013, but still company could not do so anything substantial. And apart from that, so since it is located in a third world country, right? So we all knew that third world countries have also facing a lot of problems such as poverty, hunger, malnutrition, unemployment, lack of economic growth and economic development, income security is lacking, poor per capita incomes, and also lack of infrastructure. A lot of problems these third world countries have been facing. So if the company has not adopted any artificial intelligence, so this company would certainly lag behind the other companies, and the company will no longer competitive, and it would lose its competitive edge and advantage. So therefore you can mention all these ethical issues, and if required you can briefly explain them in one liners. And ultimately in C, you have to question number 3, your company has been identified to be penalized by the technological giants. So what logical and ethical arguments will you put forth to convince about the necessity of your company? So you can write a lot of points. Firstly, the company is located in a third world countries. The company can create a huge employment opportunities. And what about the corporate social responsibility? The funding from this company can be invested in many areas for the social and economic development of the backward areas, developing infrastructure and improving the marginalized sections, improving the connectivity, drinking water, sanitation, healthcare, education. And also you have the commitment, you have the goal of reducing the greenhouse gases by the becoming net zero by 2030, and you have the capacity and you have the potential to achieve this goal by the year 2030. And this company also has the potential to invest substantially in renewable energy technologies and also energy efficient methods to achieve all these objectives. So not just from the perspective of economic growth and economic development, profitability and innovation perspectives, from the perspective of environment also, this company is very important. You need to write all these points to convince convince the governments, convince the non-governmental organizations, convince environmental activists, and also convince people who are opposing your company adopting artificial intelligence and more innovation, because that has resulted in the more greenhouse gases. And ultimately, being a conscious being, what measures would you adopt to maintain a balance between artificial intelligence innovation and environmental footprint? So that's how you can address all these 4 questions. So the first part of the answer. So what is your immediate response to challenges posed in the above case? So you can write all these challenges. So as I have already told you that first and foremost what you have to do, you need to acknowledge the environmental concerns. You need to acknowledge that your company has been producing more than 48% of the greenhouse gas emissions, and you should also emphasize on your company's commitment to become net zero by the year 2030, right? So that's a one way to compel the people who are strongly opposing your company's lack of environmental sustainability or increased emissions. And immediately you need to conduct an emission audit, right? So emission audit helps you properly assess the current emissions portfolio, and it will also help you chart out a clear plan how the company could reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And you could also identify the potential of this company in terms of reducing the greenhouse gases, and where you need to make an investments to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and also become net zero. So if it is possible, you can also add examples along with these points. And you should also invest in renewable energies and energy efficient methods. For example, when we talk about the renewable energy technologies, so what are those important renewable energy technologies? For example, wind energy, solar energy, and all these are different types of energy forms. So renewable energy forms. So renewable energy production which is which does not use fossil fuels for the production, and when you consume those renewable energies, it will not result in emission of greenhouse gases as well. So that would substantially reduce the carbon footprint of your company. So therefore you need to invest in both renewable energy technologies as well as energy efficiency methods as well. And since you have the goal of becoming net zero by the year 2030, you need to set an interim or short-term goals, and these short-term goals should be milestones towards your 2030 net zero target to maintain accountability and transparency as well. And it is also asked to discuss ethical issues involved in the above case. There are a lot of ethical issues involved in this case. For example, environmental sustainability versus profit making. So if you wanted to make a profit, you need to adopt artificial intelligence and you need to become more innovative. You need to adopt more and more new and advanced technologies, but that uses a lot of energy, that consumes a lot of energy, and that would also result in emissions of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So therefore, don't you see a conflict between environmental sustainability versus making your company more and more profitable? And secondly, public accountability is also another important ethical issue here, because ignoring the social responsibility, you are a company which is located in a third world country. We all knew that what kind of problems that these third world countries usually face. So ignoring social responsibility and emitting a lot of greenhouse gases, causing harm or degrading the environment, so would have a lot of environmental impact, and that would also degrade the public and environmental welfare as well. And equity and justice would be another areas to focus upon, because when we talk about the equity, so right, so there is a difference between equality and equity. So equity talks about justice, right? So equity talks about the justice. So equity is not equality in literal sense, right? So environmental harm disproportionately affect the poorer community. So that is what equity talks about, right? So there's no doubt that environmental harm or environmental degradation would impact every section of every community, every section or every individual in this world. But when you look at the impact of environmental degradation on different sections, environmental harm causes a major impact on the poorer sections or the poorer communities, right? So most of the people who are residing in these third world countries. And apart from that, transparency and greenwashing is another ethical issue. So when I say greenwashing, what does this greenwashing means? So I have already explained. So this greenwashing, for example, imagine a company which is located anywhere in the world. So since there is a growing environmental consciousness among the people. Now what companies have been doing, companies have been producing a lot of products, and the companies falsely claiming that the production process and the production their products are completely environment friendly. They are not releasing emissions, they are not releasing too much of emissions into the environment. So that is known as greenwashing. So despite the company's production processes, production products are not produced in a greener or environmental friendly or eco-friendly manner, but they are advertising themselves as greener companies or greener products, or the processes of the production is greener or eco-friendly in nature. So that is known as a greenwashing. So your company ABC should not be greenwashing the public. Your company should have the public accountability, and your company should have the social responsibility. It should be transparent. It should not mislead the customers, investors, and the regulators. And apart from that, the intergenerational justice is also very, very important, since your company is one of the largest company in the world. So your company has been consuming a lot of resources, and it is also important that when we are consuming our resources, because we as a generation don't have the complete right over the resources on this planet Earth, right? So we are going to see the future generations also. The future generations also have the same right to use resources on this planet. So therefore we need to make sure that we need to use resources in a wise, sustainable, and efficient manner, so that our future generations can also use resources like us. And that is the essence of sustainable development. And the third question is, your company has been identified to be penalized by technological giants, and what logical and ethical arguments will you put forth to convince about its necessity? So firstly, it is very important that your company have a commitment to the environmental sustainability. So what sort of a commitment you already have, because that is mentioned in this case study. So the commitment is that your company is committed to the environmental sustainability, and your company will achieve the goal of becoming net zero by the year 2030. So therefore you need to demonstrate your commitment by investing in renewable energy technologies, renewable energy resources, and also the energy efficient methods. And secondly, investment in green technologies, particularly the renewable energy technologies, right? Because so that is the essence of this case study. So if you invest in green technologies, renewable energy technologies, energy efficiency methods, so in future there is a higher probability that you will become net zero. You can achieve your goal by the year 2030, and you can become an ideal for the other companies as well to immediately switch over to the renewable energies resources, as well as investing more on these technologies. And in fact, so this company ABC operates in a third world country. So therefore it is very important that we need to understand certain problems that these third world countries have been facing, right? So what sort of a problems that these third world countries have been facing? For example, they don't have infrastructure, they don't have investment, they don't have a proper employment opportunities or gainful employment opportunities. So all these problems that these third world countries have been regularly facing. So therefore this technological giant, or this particular company which is located in these third world countries, could substantially help the countries improve infrastructure, improve connectivity, and achieve resource use efficiency. And it could also provide gainful employment opportunities, so in this company, but in also in other companies which are dependent on these company. So apart from that, we should also talk about the economic impact, right? So what sort of an economic impact this company will have on this third world country, right? So you need to for example, if this company if this company is not able to meet its obligations, so it will be penalized, of course, and it would lead to the job losses, and it would lead to reduced innovation and loss of competitiveness of this. Because when we talk about these industries, technological giants, right? So there's a lot of competition at the global level, particularly in these industries, right? So if anything happens So if anything happens for this company, or if this company is not able to meet the environmental standards, or if this company you know so therefore all these things will lead to the job losses and reduced innovation, and that could ultimately harm not just the company but the broader technological landscape of that particular third world country as well. And after that, you need to write about the fourth question. So being a conscious being, so what measures would you adopt to maintain balance between artificial intelligence innovation and environmental footprint? So since you have addressed all these different parts of this question and last part of the question, so how could you balance the artificial intelligence innovation and environmental footprint? Because innovation and making company profitable is your responsibility as a chief executive officer of this particular company, but at the same time you should not forget the environmental impact of your company, right? So you should also understand the environmental impact of this particular company. So in this context, what you need to do, so first and foremost, carbon offsetting is very important. So we have discussed also in our previous questions. So invest in carbon offsetting projects such as reforestation is a one way you can do a reforestation that could help offsetting the emissions from your company, and you can also take up the renewable energy technologies and compensate for emissions that cannot be eliminated. And after that, design artificial intelligence products with energy efficiency in mind, because your company started adopting artificial intelligence. So in this context, what you have to do, so you need to adopt artificial intelligence which is more and more energy efficient, and also ensure that they require less computational power without sacrificing the performance as well, so that you remain very competitive. You always remain competitive, right? So after that, the other thing that we need to talk about is employee training and awareness, right? So employee training and awareness is another area that you need to focus on, right? So you need to focus upon, right? So implement sustainability training programs that encourage innovative thinking around the energy usage. So renewable energy integration, so when we talk about the renewable energy integration, so you need to partner with the governments or private enterprises to co-invest in green infrastructure in the third world. And after that, a gradual transition to green computing is also a very important area that has to be focused upon, right? So because with the gradual transition to green computing, now what generally happens, your company will be more and more environmentally sustainable. So that also helps a company achieve the environmental sustainability, and that's how you can actually balance the innovation profitability of your company, and also you can make your company address the problems of excessive emissions which are being generated by this particular company, and also make sure that this company is located in a third world country, since third world countries have been facing a lot of problems. So it would also help the third world countries improve the gainful employment opportunities for the people, and it could improve the infrastructure. It could also improve the connectivity. So all these problems could be addressed in those third world countries. So that's how you can address this case study. So since it is a lengthy case study, and since you have to address this case study in just 250 words, so there is no need to write the stakeholders involved unless it is specifically asked, right? So this is a very lengthy case study, and this case study has 4 questions, and you need to address this question in just 250 words alone, right? So since it is a lengthy question, there is no need to write the stakeholders unless it is specifically asked. You just understand, you just comprehend, so what are the different dimensions which are given in this case study, and then you need to address each of these questions in a bit detailed manner, and that would be enough, right? So the next case study number 2, is it is about the administration, right? So the case study is saying that Raman is a senior IPS officer and he has recently been posted as a DG of a state. And among various issues and the problems or the challenges which needed his immediate attention, so of course whenever someone is in the position of an authoritative position, so of course they need to confront with a lot of issues, a lot of challenges that they regularly face, right? So among various problems or various issues which needed his immediate attention, the issue relating to the recruitment of unemployed youth by an unknown terrorist group was a matter of grave concern, right? So it is more or less slightly relevant to the issue of radicalization of the youth in some states in India. But for example, in the state of Kerala, in the year 2016, some youth have joined, they were radicalized and they joined ISIS and they went to Afghanistan to become part of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. And even Jammu and Kashmir also, radicalization and recruiting youth into the militancy or into the terrorist organizations have become one of the rampant challenge that few states in India have been facing, and that has been creating an internal security challenge as well for India. So secondly, it was noted that unemployment was relatively high in the state. So not just in those states, in many states in India, unemployment is one of the one of the challenge. Right, so unemployment, lack of gainful employment opportunities generally attract people generally attract people because it is an easy way for these terrorist organizations to recruit people. They can convince them, so they can easily spread their propaganda among these educated but unemployed youth. So the problem of unemployment among graduates and those with higher education was much more grave, and there is also a sense of dissatisfaction and disaffection towards the state as well, because they are educated but they are unemployed. So the dissatisfaction is that so state is unable to provide them the employment opportunity. So that kind of a dissatisfaction can be used by these terrorist organizations. So thus they were vulnerable and they were very often the soft targets as well. So in the review meeting taken by him with senior officers of DIG range and above, it came to the light that a new terrorist group has emerged at the global level. So there is a new terrorist organization which is emerging at the global level, and it has launched a massive drive to recruit young unemployed people. So remember that it's unlikely that people who are rich, people who are employed, people who are enjoying a good living standards join these terrorist organizations. So very often a large number of people who are part of these terrorist organizations are very often poor, unemployed and uneducated youth. So therefore this new terrorist organization, in order to perpetrate large scale violence and terrorism, it requires a large number of youth. So this terrorist organization has started recruiting a large number of unemployed youth, right? So this said organization, the organization which is established at the global level, seemed to have a clear objective of utilizing and also using them for carrying out militant activities. And it was also gathered that this particular group is desperately trying to spread its tentacles in his state, right? So it is not just recruiting these unemployed youth into the terrorist organization, rather by recruiting the unemployed youth, this terrorist organization has also establishing its base in that particular state where Raman is working as a DG. And a definite and reliable intelligence tip was received by the state CID and cyber cell that a large number of such unemployed youth have already been contacted by the terrorist output or group through social media. And in fact, a lot of local communal organizations and other contacts are being extensively used to recruit the unemployed youth into these terrorist organizations. So the need of the hour was to act swiftly and to check these elements designs before they assume serious proportions, because you can see that it is at the nascent stage, and therefore you need to act swiftly on these recruitment of unemployed youth into terrorist organizations. Otherwise it would be very difficult to control these elements. So once they have established a strong base, a strong organizational base in that particular state, so therefore it is very important now to collect or to gather information, intelligence about this recruitment and immediately stop the recruitment, because otherwise it would create a security or an internal security challenge for India, right? So it would also leads to a large scale violence. And discreet inquiries made by the police through the cyber cell revealed that a good numbers of unemployed youth are very active on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. So social media as an intermediary or a medium through which these terrorist organizations have been targeting the unemployed youth and recruiting them by offering some ransom or some sort of money. So on an average, many of them were spending 6 to 8 hours each day using electronic devices. So since they are unemployed, they are spending most of their time using these electronic devices and internet. So that's how these unemployed youth become easy targets for the terrorist organizations to further spread the disaffection about the state, about the nation, and easily attracting them into the terrorist organization or joining them into these organizations. So it also came to the light that such unemployed youth were showing sympathy and also endorsing messages received from certain persons. So allegedly the contact persons of the global terrorist groups. So see, when they are convincing or compelling people to join this terrorist organization, so there is a possibility that they will spread the propaganda, right? So they will spread the propaganda, they would influence the people, and ultimately people would be attracted, right? So since most of the people are emotionally weak, right, so it would be very easy for these terrorist organizations to compel them, to convince them to join these terrorist organizations. And in fact, the social media accounts revealed the strong affinity to such groups, in as much as many of them started forwarding anti-national tweets on their WhatsApp and Facebook, etc. So as I've already told you that these unemployed youth, there is a higher probability, because so when they are unemployed, when they cannot support their families, so it is highly likely that the disaffection starts developing, that state is not able to provide an employment for me. So state is responsible for all this. So it is obvious that those people would start listen to these terrorist organizations. They would also develop an anti-national sentiment, anti-national feelings. So it is revealed that those youth have been forwarding the anti-national tweets through social media. So it seemed that they succumbed to their ploy by these terrorist organizations, and they also started propagating this secessionist ideology. Now, what is this secessionist ideology? So secessionist ideology essentially means separation. So they wanted to separate from India. So whether it is Punjab, the Khalistani movement, or Jammu and Kashmir militancy, because they also wanted independence, supported by Pakistan's cross-border terrorism, and in fact some parts of northeastern part of India, right? So once this organization started recruiting unemployed youth. Now they are started propagating the secessionist ideology that they wanted to separate from India, so threatening the unity and integrity and even sovereignty of the nation. So their posts were hypercritical of the government's initiatives, policies, and subscribing to extreme beliefs and promoting extremism. So how can they propagate this secessionist ideology? Of course, so if these youth joined any terrorist organization, so they would easily have access to weapons, arms, ammunition, and all sort of finances. And we also heard about the narco terrorism. So drug trafficking, human trafficking, weapon trafficking, or arms smuggling. So all these things would be done by these local organizations recruited by the global terrorist organization, and they start recruiting more and more youth and ultimately turning that particular state into a base of these terrorist activities, and it would create a large scale internal security threat for the Indian state, ultimately threatening the unity and integrity of the nation. So this is the larger problem that the Raman and his subordinates and his superior officers had to face, right? So one thing that you need to understand here is that it is a very, very lengthy case study. So this year almost every case study is a very lengthy case study. So you can see how much time it took. It takes almost 12 minutes for us to read all this case study and understand different aspects which are involved in this case study, right? So therefore it is not easy for you to address the entire ethics paper within given time. So when it comes to ethics paper, no doubt that you can score very good marks in this paper, but one thing is that you need to finish this paper within the given time of 3 hours. So you can almost manage your optional paper and other general studies paper and even essay paper also, but this paper, it would be little difficult to manage. So you need to complete this paper in 3 hours. So if you completed this paper in 3 hours, there is no doubt that you would get a very, very good marks. So if you have strong command over these different values, these different principles, and you have a decent enough knowledge in this paper, right? So there are 3 questions which are based on this case study. Now, what are those questions? The first question is, what are the options available to Raman to tackle the above situation? So you need to write about some options which are available to Raman to tackle the above situation, because he is in a DG rank, an IPS officer, and DG rank, and before him there are certain options. So he need to evaluate all these options and ultimately find out which option would be best suitable for this particular issue, this particular problem. And second question is, what measures would you suggest for strengthening the existing setup to ensure that such groups do not succeed in penetrating and even vitiating the atmosphere in the state? And secondly, you need to write about the suggestions that you can give for him to further strengthen the existing setup, so that can ensure that such terrorist organization, thus that such groups do not succeed in penetrating or vitiating the atmosphere in the state. And third, in the above scenario, what action plan would you advise for enhancing the intelligence gathering mechanism of the police force? So these are the 3 questions. So so since all these 3 questions require a very detailed answers within 250 words, so again there is no need to write stakeholders, or even no need to write the ethical issues involved in this case study as well, because remember that this is a very lengthy case study, and within these 3 questions also you need to write a very lengthy answers, and just write an introduction and directly jump into the first question, addressing the first question, what are the options available to Raman, and then after addressing the question number 3, you write the conclusion itself. Now when we talk about the options available to Raman to tackle the above situation, so you need to explore options. So what options Raman really have so to actually solve to address this particular problem, right? So when we talk about the options available for Raman, so what is the main reason for increased recruitment into these terrorist organizations? So unemployment. So along with the civilian administration, so along with the center and state governments, so he could he could convince those governments, those people in the civilian administration to look after this problem of unemployment, right? So for example, how can we address the problem of unemployment? By skill development, by promoting entrepreneurship, by providing access to institutional credit, right? So if you cannot provide people with the employment, at least make sure that there is a proper skill among the people, and there is enough entrepreneurship opportunities for the people as well. So this models can be developed. And secondly, the terrorist organization has been recruiting the unemployed youth through social media, right? So it is very important that PIB was recently set up or established as a fact check unit. So it is also very important to regularly look for the information. Strong intelligence gathering is also very, very important, and there is a need to take up large scale community sensitization, community awareness programs, particularly bringing in making parents part of this initiative is also very, very important. And there is also need to work with the organizations, civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, and also certain religious based organizations, so they can compel the youth not to join these terrorist organizations. And apart from that, there is also need to deploy a large number of security forces by identifying the potential hotspots. So when we identify the potential hotspots and when we start deploying a large scale security forces, so they can effectively curb the existing networks, the organizational networks that this terrorist organization has already established. So you can talk about all these options which are available as of now. And secondly, what measures would you suggest for strengthening the existing setup to ensure that such groups do not succeed in penetrating? So for that, it is very important that we need to have strong intelligence gathering, and we need to further strengthen the internal security mechanism by deploying security forces. And we should also make sure that the social media has to be curbed, or social media has to be regulated in those areas. And it is also very, very important that there is a need for joint collaboration or interdepartmental, and that kind of a working is very, very important. And there is also a need for working with different organizations at the global level, particularly the financial action task force, financial action task force, right? So financial action task force also list countries in blacklist or grey list based on the efforts to curb money laundering or terror funding or terror financing. So in G20 platforms and even Shanghai Cooperation Organization, there is a structure called RATS, Regional Anti-Terrorism Structure. So all these mechanisms have to be used extensively to prevent or to curb external support to these terrorist organizations or these terror networks. And regular monitoring and surveillance is also very, very important, right? So you can address all these questions in that manner. So let's look into this. So what are the options available to Raman to tackle above situations? So the following options are being available for the Raman. The first option is that Raman can initiate a legal action. So what sort of a legal action? So he should start an arrest and detention of people who are already into this organization, who are already influenced by this organization, who are already part of it, and who are actively involved in recruiting the unemployed youth. So either arresting and detention of those people, right? Because the state is already showing the signs of radicalization, so therefore swift action is the need of the hour. So if there is no swift action, if there is no such strict action, so this radicalization will pose a serious problem of a huge base of terrorist network. So therefore there is a need to invoke a draconian anti-terror laws such as Unlawful Activities Prevention Act to make arrests and also detention of people who are already engaged with these terror networks. So that will help prevent or to check the further escalation of this particular problem. Secondly, Raman could also approach this particular issue from the social reform perspective. Remember that I have already discussed this. So what sort of a social reform perspective that Raman could actually look this particular problem? For example, as I've already told you that this radicalization or increased recruitment of youth into terror organizations is because of the problem of unemployment and disenfranchisement. So this issue has to be addressed. So even though I can say that this is not a short-term solution for this, right? So providing employment and also increasing entrepreneurship is not a short-term solution. Rather, it is a long-term solution, and it requires a large-scale collaboration from different departments, different ministries, and even center-state collaboration as well. But we should also not neglect this particular aspect. This particular angle, and initiating counseling programs is also very important. There should be proper educational campaigns and engagement with the community leaders. So all these things, all these initiatives from Raman can actually help bring vulnerable youth back into the mainstream society and address this problem. And thirdly, Raman also can adopt a balanced approach. So what sort of a balanced approach Raman can actually adopt in this context? So he can actually combine the strict law enforcement with the community engagement and employment program. So this is what is called as a holistic solution, right? So holistic solution, a comprehensive solution is a combination of the enforcement of laws with community engagement and employment programs. So that is a combination of both short-term and long-term measures. So this particularly includes strengthening surveillance mechanisms, taking legal action against hardcore offenders, particularly the people who are recruiting the unemployed youth into these terrorist organizations, particularly people who are radicalizing youth. The communal groups, there are certain communal groups so who play a very important, a very crucial role when it comes to recruitment of unemployed youth and other uneducated youth into these terror organizations. And Raman simultaneously, along with other organizations, should focus on job creation, educational initiatives, for example organizing a job mela, so organizing an army recruitment rally, so all these things. But I cannot say that Raman alone cannot do all these things, but it requires a multi-stakeholder collaboration. That is very important. And also other thing is that it is not a short-term measure, rather it is a long-term measure that would help prevent others from falling prey to these extremist ideologies and making the state a base to the terrorist organizations or terror networks. And second question is, what measures would you suggest for strengthening the existing setup to ensure that such groups do not succeed in penetrating and vitiating the atmosphere in the state? And a lot of measures can be taken up. So particularly, Raman can take inspiration from Jammu and Kashmir multi-agency intelligence grid. So even though in the case study it is nowhere mentioned that Jammu and Kashmir is the state which has been facing the problem of militancy, but if you want you can write such examples, so that can bring, so there are such organizations, right? For example, Jammu and Kashmir is a state which has been facing the same problem, and it has established the J&K multi-agency intelligence grid to collect and to gather intelligence and information about the activities of militancy and militant recruitments. And we have intelligence bureau, state police and military intelligence. So there is a need for a collaboration from all these different organizations to regularly gather the information, to gather the intelligence about the recruitment and the military activities, the military operations which are being planned. And so apart from that, there is also a need to launch a large scale skill development program. Now one thing that we need to understand is that, okay, so a large number of youth in India are educated, but they are not able to get the employment opportunities, the gainful employment opportunities. So one reason for that is lack of skills. For example, you are a graduate, but you have a certain sort of a skill and you would easily get the employment. So that gap has to be bridged. So gap between the education and skills is has to be bridged, and that is very important to ensure that the educated youth gets ready employment opportunities, right? For example, if I can tell you that in India only just 4.5% of the youth are educated youth are formally skilled, in contrary to around 94% in South Korea, around 85% in Japan. So 9.4% 5.4 percentage is nothing, or 4.5% is around that range. So it is nothing in India. So therefore there is a need for large scale skill development programs, particularly in states like Jammu and Kashmir. There is already a program which is launched, that is Nai Udan scheme. Okay, because that can provide employment opportunities for these vulnerable youth, and they can not fall prey to these terrorist elements, and that can also address the root cause of the problem of radicalization. And there is also a need for de-radicalization. So when we talk about the de-radicalization programs, so they can we need to provide counseling, psychological support, education, which aimed at reintegration of youth into the society, and also needs to ensure that the local communal organizations. Now what are the communal organizations? So when I say communal organizations, so communal organizations are those organizations which are hardcore religious organizations, which very often preach religious fundamentalist ideas, right? For example, so one religion is the only religion. There is a need to persecute people from other religions. We should not tolerate other religions. So those organizations which advocate those principles and those ideas are known as the communal organizations. Now all religions have these communal organizations, and there is a very high probability that these communal organizations radicalize youth by preaching the fundamentalist ideas. Okay, so they are closely monitored, and if any of these communal organizations, they show signs of involving people in radicalizing the youth, so they need to initiate stricter actions under relevant laws such as Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, right? So for example, against organizations like Popular Front in India. Now recently Popular Front of India is also one of the communal organization which has been promoting Islamic fundamentalism, and that has resulted in the radicalization of youth. So recently the government of India banned this Popular Front of India on the context that it has been promoting Islamic fundamentalism as well as the radicalization of youth. So such measures can be taken, and apart from that, community policing and engagement to build trust and act as a bridge between law enforcement and citizens, and public awareness campaigns have to be undertaken on a large scale. So ultimately the third part of the question, so action plan for enhancing the intelligence gathering mechanism. So what sort of an action plan we could actually have to further strengthen or enhance intelligence gathering mechanism? So we need to deploy undercover officers. So particularly for doing covert operations, there is a need for undercover officers, increase human intelligence efforts by recruiting the local informers within these vulnerable communities, so that we could have the better information about these operations, recruitment processes, these military terrorist organizations, activities, day-to-day activities. Everything can be monitored by recruiting the local informers. And artificial intelligence based predictive policing is also very important, because artificial intelligence tools can actually analyze the social media and also identify extremist activities early, because generally artificial intelligence devices, what they do, they have a huge information, a huge set of data, and they can take into that data and they can analyze that data, and they can actually predict, right, the activities of these extremist groups. So following the successful use of this predictive policing in countries like US and UK, and also there is a need to establish intelligence sharing networks, such as there is a need for dedicated intelligence fusion center in the state, so that can bring together law enforcement agencies. See, one thing that we need to remember here is that there are multiple organizations, for example, research and analysis wing, national investigation agency, IB, state police, and the military and paramilitary forces. So there is a need for a collaboration, right? So how can we achieve collaboration? So we can achieve collaboration by establishing a dedicated intelligence fusion center, and this intelligence fusion center will ensure that all information would be reached to one particular center, and that would analyze the information, and that would also predict the terrorist activities, the operations of these terrorist organizations, the next move of these terrorist organizations, that will help counter these the operations of these terrorist organizations. And apart from that, there is a need for regular intelligence training for the local police officers to improve their ability to identify the potential extremist activities in their respective jurisdictions. So all these measures can be taken to further enhance intelligence gathering mechanism in that particular state, to holistically address the problem of terrorism, right? So ultimately we can say that it is a major problem, right? So it requires a comprehensive and a holistic, both short-term and long-term measures to address the problem and make the state de-radicalized or radicalization free, and also make sure that youth are engaged properly in employment opportunities or entrepreneurship or even skill development activities. So that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much.